Alrighty, we had a really big week last week with our predictions, week three. We were above 70%. I posted somewhere on the socials what the percentage was of the accuracy of the picks that I made last week, but it was really, really good, way better than the previous 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to hope to keep that up here and make some really, really great predictions for this week. Hopefully, we can take an undefeated week at some point during this season. Maybe that's this week. So let's go ahead and get right into the predictions, starting with Illinois at Nebraska. Coming into the year, I had Illinois being the worst team in the Big Ten. Obviously, I don't really think that they are that. As they are now 3-0. If they win this game, they will be 4-0. They're only major win was against Kansas, and after seeing Kansas's game against UNLV, I'm putting a bit less weight into that win, to be honest with you. But all that aside, Illinois' defense has been surprisingly solid through 3 weeks. Luke Ohlmeyer has been fairly solid and hasn't thrown any interceptions yet. I do think that Illinois' defense will provide probably the best defense that Nebraska has played yet. But they're going up against Nebraska, and which is a team that I think is just better all around, and maybe a sleeper team in the Big Ten. Not to mention that they are playing this game at Nebraska. That fan base is a sleeping giant that is finally getting a taste of winning. We saw how loud and how awesome they were when they played Colorado last week. That environment will definitely be hostile. Dylan Raiola has performed very well in his first season with the Huskers. Nebraska's only real competition up to this point has been Colorado, but they did look really good in that game. Their defense has also been spectacular, which was to be expected. I mean, I'd said that in the preseason that their defense was pretty much going to be great. It was their offense that we had to wait and see on, and from what I've seen, I have liked what they've been. They only gave up 10 points to Colorado, and that's a team that's very well known for their high-flying offense, so that was pretty impressive. It's true that Nebraska hasn't really played a team that can run the ball like Illinois can, but I expect Nebraska to be up to the challenge. Just because they haven't faced that doesn't mean that they can't. And to be honest, I think that Illinois and Nebraska's competition to this point has been fairly similar in quality, and I just think Nebraska looks to have an edge. They look to have played better in almost every single area. Nebraska also has the better depth at skill positions and plenty of offensive options that they can use against Illinois. It's a bit easier to pin down what Illinois' offense is going to look like. I think they'll end up being pretty one note, and I think that'll be pretty easy for Nebraska to be able to stop and lock down. But Illinois is probably the most physical team that Nebraska has played yet, so they probably also have the best secondary that Nebraska has played. There is a world here where Nebraska's freshman quarterback is forced into some turnovers that may make it difficult for them, and they also may have a difficult time matching physicality. But I do expect this to be a prove-it game for Nebraska, where they can match that physicality and win at the line. And honestly, I'm picking them to win overall. So that's the first pick I have is Nebraska beating Illinois. Next up, I have North Carolina State at Clemson, and this is a no-brainer to me. Clemson is just better than North Carolina State. That's who I'm picking. I'm picking Clemson. North Carolina State has looked bad in every single game they've played this year. They had a comeback against their FCS team in Week 1. They got body bagged by Tennessee in Week 2, and they survived their game against Louisiana Tech in Week 3. They just aren't even close to what they should be, and that's not even to mention that they have to start a true freshman at quarterback after Grayson McCall got injured. This game is also going to be at Death Valley at Clemson. It's off of a bye for Clemson after putting up 66 points against App State. Sure, Clemson may not be what they used to be, but they should be pretty good enough to win this game. Cade Klubnik only threw 2 incompletions in his last game, going 24 for 26. And offensively, everything was working for them. And App State is not really a slouch team, so that was really impressive to see. Sure, they couldn't score more than a field goal against Georgia, but North Carolina State, may wear the same colors as Georgia and have a dog for a mascot, but they are definitely not Georgia. Clemson will win this game, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I hesitate to say that they're going to cover because the number is really, really big, but I think Clemson's going to win this game very confidently. Next is Florida at Mississippi State. This game is probably a game where you're going to see some of the worst football you've ever seen all season. Dumpster fire against dumpster fire may very well be the battle for who is the worst team in the SEC. And for how bad Florida has been, I have a hard time seeing them lose this game. Mississippi State is coming off of a game where they got blown out 41-17 against Toledo. Florida has been getting blown out as well, but at least it's been against power conference opponents and even ranked ones as well. And as much crap that there is at Florida, it's not like they're devoid of talent. Graham Mertz is a pretty solid quarterback. Lagway definitely has some growing pains, but the potential is also there. And there are guys like Montrell Johnson and Elijah Badger that can have a breakout game. Montrell Johnson hasn't really been too much of a factor as of late, but he definitely has the potential. On Mississippi State's end, I just don't think that they have that kind of a ceiling. I won't really break this down any further because I feel like it's comparing crap to crap, and I just think Florida's crap is a little bit less stinky, so I'm taking Florida to win this game. And next I have Kansas at West Virginia. West Virginia has lost both times I picked them to win, so logic would tell me to pick against them here, but I can't. I'm picking West Virginia to win this game. I saw a lot to like about that team, even in that loss last week. Kansas has lost to Illinois and UNLV now, and honestly, I don't really see much that I like from them this season. Jalen Daniels just doesn't look the same. He's already thrown 6 interceptions this year, and I think that coordinator change has been a big reason for that. I just don't know if Jalen Daniels can really get it done under this new offense. West Virginia gets the benefit from home field advantage here. This will definitely be a close game, I think, but I think West Virginia will pull it out and not choke this one like they did the last game. I really thought Kansas would be better this year, but they seem to be reverting back to what they used to be. And I just don't trust that they can go on the road and win a game when the margins are this thin. So I'm picking West Virginia to win the game. Next, I have USC at Michigan, and I doubted USC in the preseason. You could even look at my past preseason video for the Big Ten. I had them ranked below Maryland, but after seeing them beat LSU and look pretty dang good doing it, I have come to respect this team a whole lot more. Obviously, their defense looks a lot better than I expected. They obviously had that firepower on offense, as Lincoln Riley always does. But again, this year they actually seem to have a defense that even was able to shut out Utah State, which is a team that gave Utah some trouble. Michigan, on the other hand, is expectedly not as good as they were last season after losing so much talent, their head coach, and some other staff as well. We saw Texas go into Ann Arbor a few weeks ago and do whatever they wanted to Michigan, and I don't really think that USC is going to be able to do whatever they want. I think it will be not quite as ugly. I do expect USC to go in there and control the game. They are off of a bye week, so they've had all week to practice for this game or prepare. Michigan does have a stout defense. I think that will keep this game fairly low scoring, but USC has the firepower to break through that defense and break the dam enough to be able to get a few scores in, especially since I think that Michigan's defense will be on the field quite a bit since Michigan hasn't really been able to get anything going on offense. They are still playing both quarterbacks. I believe Alex Orji was announced the starter for this game. Both quarterbacks have seemed pretty average. Alex Orji playing in this game does give them more running options, but I think that there are less options in the pass game. Obviously, Michigan has offensive weapons on the ground like Donovan Edwards and, like I said, Alex Orji. But I think that USC's defense is actually good enough to not let the ground game be a game changer, which just feels insane to say knowing what USC has been. So give me USC to win. And I suspect they probably will cover, but I'm not going to pick that. So give me USC to win that game. Next, I have UCLA at LSU. LSU has had a bit of a rocky start. They barely beat South Carolina. They took a loss to USC. And while there are plenty of weaknesses to point out, there are also plenty of positives with this team. Their defense looks improved from last season, and they have a quarterback that can sling the ball, and they have grit and composure to fight in close games like we saw last week. And to be honest, they could probably be half as good as they are and still beat UCLA. UCLA just looks awful. They almost lost to Hawaii, and they got body bagged by Indiana, which just yikes. To add insult to injury, UCLA has to travel like 1,000,000 miles to play this game in one of the hardest places to play in the country. UCLA has really no shot in this game. I could break down specific matchups and areas. LSU has the edge, but I don't really feel like I need to. LSU is obviously the better team. They have several edges. There's the only way that I see UCLA winning this game is if LSU has a major letdown game of like Notre Dame proportions after an emotional win against South Carolina, but I just don't see that happening. UCLA may be the actual worst team in the Big Ten, so unless there's like an insane amount of things that go wrong for LSU and go right for UCLA, I just don't see this being even really a possibility. So yeah, definitely give me LSU in this game. Next is Georgia Tech at Louisville. Georgia Tech beat Florida State, obviously. It feels like forever ago now, and Georgia Tech has really faded back into the ACC shadow after taking a loss to Syracuse and kind of seeing that Florida State win was really not all it was cracked up to be. And if they struggled to keep up with Syracuse, I really doubt that they can keep up with Louisville. Georgia Tech has a really good shot in this game, though. Haynes King has been a real asset to the Yellow Jackets. Jamal Haynes has been a very successful running back, and the receivers already have over a combined 1,000 yards through the air. They've gotten plenty of touchdowns. In all fairness, we haven't really seen Louisville play against a real opponent this year. They have looked really, really good in the games they have played in, and but mostly this pick I'm making based off of what I think they are and what I thought they were in the preseason. They give me no reason to believe that my preseason placement of them is wrong. In fact, my main concern for them in the preseason was defense, and defense has looked really, really solid for them in the 2 games they have played. And we'll really get to know a lot more about both of these teams after this game, but I think that this should be a lot closer of a game than people may think because, like I said, Georgia Tech does have some real weapons, but my main concern is that Georgia Tech's secondary will not be able to stop Louisville's passing game, so I'm picking Louisville to win this game, but I think it will be a close one. Next, I have Arkansas at Auburn, and Arkansas has shown inconsistency so far this season. And this week, they have to go to Jordan-Hare, which is no easy place to play. I think they're going to pull out the win, though. This game is a game that I feel like could have a wide variety of different outcomes. Auburn is starting Hank Brown in this one. He has no interceptions against New Mexico, so I think that is an improvement. You know, as we know that Peyton Thorne threw 4 in their game against Cal. But we've yet to see Hank Brown really play against the real opponent, so there is a lot of uncertainty there. Auburn definitely did not impress me in their loss to Cal, and they really didn't impress me much this past week against New Mexico. Definitely potential for Auburn, though, but a lot of inconsistency, just like Arkansas. I do feel like Arkansas has more proven commodities, though, that can win this game for them through the on the ground especially. Jaquindon Jackson is very effective with the ball in his hands, so between him and Taylon Green, I expect the ground game to have a lot of success. Offensive line has blocked much better than they did last year, but they have a shot. They have shot themselves in the foot a little bit, which was the reason they lost to Oklahoma State and played close with UAB. Penalties, turnovers, miscommunication, inconsistency, all really plagued this team so far. All things that I think aren't super hard to clean up. So if they can play a clean game, they should be in a really good spot here. Taylon Green has shown flashes in the past game, especially against Oklahoma State, but he was really unimpressive in his game against UAB, at least through the air. So it's also worth pointing out that Arkansas is banged up in their secondary. Outside of injury, Arkansas has struggled to defend shorter passes, which Auburn features a lot of. So that could be a path for Auburn, especially if they can get Jarquez Hunter to run the ball successfully against them like he did last year. I think that their more likely outcome, though, is for Arkansas to go into Auburn and win a close game. I think that they're just the more balanced offense. They have more proven production, and they should be able to force Auburn to remain one-dimensional, focusing on their passing game. I don't really think I can trust a true freshman quarterback to take down the Hogs despite Arkansas being 1-6 against Auburn. The next game I have is Utah at Oklahoma State. Utah obviously looks a very different team when they have Cam Rising at quarterback, and when they don't, luckily for them, they do have Cam Rising in this game. I just don't know if he's going to be 100%. I also don't know if him returning will be enough to tip the scales in their favor. Oklahoma State has looked incredible on offense, scoring 39-plus points in every single game this season. I've talked about Ollie Gordon before because, you know, he is such a great running back. He'll be the talk of pretty much any prediction that I do because he's the best player on that team, possibly the best running back in the country. He may not be having the same success that he had last year yet, but He is primed to have a breakout season sooner or later, and I think why not in this game? Alan Bowman is airing the ball out like crazy, and while they seem to struggle against the ground attack of Arkansas, Utah doesn't really provide that same threat on the ground. Obviously, this is a home game for Oklahoma State, a hard place to play, and it should be a very, very hostile environment, with these two teams being the preseason leading favorites to win the Big 12. So it's a huge, huge game. I do have concerns about Oklahoma State's defense, though, but they are coming off their most complete defensive game yet, albeit it was against Tulsa. Cam Rising definitely poses a threat to that defense if he can stay healthy. And if he plays at 100%. At the end of the day, though, I do think Oklahoma State is the better team, and their offense can put Utah in a tough spot, which will be very hard to get out of. Oklahoma State, I think that they can overcome their defensive woes in this game, even if it is a shootout. I would be concerned about ball security for quarterback Alan Bowman if that is the case, though. So we'll have to see how this game plays out. I am picking Oklahoma State to win, though. And lastly, I have Tennessee at Oklahoma, a lot of people's game of the week. I think anyone in their right mind is picking Tennessee in this spot. Obviously, anything can happen in a game like this, especially with it being a home game for Oklahoma. But Tennessee has scored 51 plus points in every single one of their games so far, while only giving up a maximum of 10 points per game. That's just insane. Nico Iamaleava is already playing like a superstar quarterback. I told y'all at the start of the season that he's a freak of nature, and that is definitely bearing true on the field. I can't even imagine what he's going to look like 2 or 3 years down the line when he meets his full potential. He's passing the ball well, running the ball well. The run game in general, just really successful. Dylan Sampson, 7.9 yards per carry, and he's tied for the most rushing touchdowns in the country. So to call Tennessee a dynamic offense is a bit of an understatement. And the score speaks for itself on defense, giving up only 13 points through 3 games. On the flip side, Oklahoma has been inconsistent, especially on offense. Defense has been stout for them, not quite the same level of success that Tennessee has seen, but still really good. The problem remains for Oklahoma on the offense. Jackson Arnold does look like a superstar in his own right, but I do have concerns about ball security with him, but he does provide that dual threat capability just to a lesser degree than Nico does. Jackson has better rushing numbers, but his passing stats are not quite as good. This is in large part due to how bad that offensive line is, and they are banged up going into this game as well. So yeah, their offensive line is really, really struggling, and a shaky offensive line against that Tennessee defensive line, I expect a ton of pressure and probably a few sacks as well as a very unimpressive run game for Oklahoma. Oklahoma does have Deion Burks, though, who is really a solid receiving option. He's not the only guy they have there, but there just isn't enough going on here for me to see a route that for Oklahoma winning or a reasonable route unless a lot goes wrong for Tennessee and a lot goes right for Oklahoma. Now, I will say we see this from Tennessee every single year, where, or especially at least under Heupel, where they blow out inferior opponents and then struggle against quality opponents. Something tells me that this team is just wired differently, though, and they'll be in every single game that they play. Even if that struggle does continue this year, though, I don't think Oklahoma will be good enough to really challenge them. I have Tennessee winning, and I think they're probably covering as well. So now, that's all for my predictions. Make sure you keep an eye out for my social media as well. I'll have more picks there. The handle is A_rock321 on both X and Threads, and also on Instagram if you want to follow me there. I don't really post my football content on there, but if you would like to give me a follow there, that also works. And please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on this video. That would be a huge help for me going forward. I put a lot of work into these videos, so I would really appreciate any support you're willing to give. But anyways, without further ado, I'm going to get into my top 25. Remember, this system is not merit-based. It's not about wins and losses. It's about how I feel each team stacks up from a quality perspective. Anything can happen on Saturdays. Bounce a ball, luck, injury, bad officiating, home field advantages. The best team does not always win a game. And the goal for this poll is to look past all of that and decide who the best teams are. So let's get right into it. Starting at the top, we have a new number 1, Texas continues to look like they have no weaknesses. They have proved that they can ball out with their backup. They can ball out on the road. They can shut up road crowds. They can be the more physical team no matter who they are up against. And it's hard to pinpoint a weakness so far. I mean, they've played one of the best defenses in the country and just destroyed them. So I have Ohio State at number 2. They look fantastic, but they haven't really played any real competition. So there are still questions to be had there. I did drop Georgia to number 3. That offense did not impress me in their win against Kentucky. They got the win, but they probably should not have. And they just looked rocky on the road, rocky offensively, just ineffective. Not the end of the world. This is normal for Georgia, but my confidence level has lowered a tad. No changes from 4 through 8. Oklahoma State did jump Utah. Honestly, I don't really think I meant to put Utah higher than them, but I definitely don't want them higher after seeing Utah struggle with Utah State. I am picking Utah to lose to Oklahoma State, albeit it is at Oklahoma State's building. But yeah, I think Oklahoma State is the better team. Even with Cam Rising back, I think Oklahoma State has impressed me more. So that's why they're here. Oregon made a big jump up to number 12. They are finally coming alive on offense. I think they're going to continue to get better, so they'll probably continue to rise in these rankings. South Carolina jumped from unranked to number 14. You can obviously see that they are above LSU despite losing. I think that they're the better team, and they just happen to lose due to bad officiating and injury. So since I think they're the better team, I put them above LSU. Hopefully that makes sense. LSU didn't really move much. In fact, they did drop a spot to make room for South Carolina. Arkansas dropped after playing a rough game against UAB. Tulane is now not even in the top 25 after a loss to Oklahoma. Clemson jumped back into the poll, and honestly, they should have been in the last one. I rectified that here. Indiana joined the top 25 after bodybagging UCLA. Oklahoma creeped back in with a solid game against Tulane, like I mentioned earlier. Illinois, unfortunately, did drop out, not because I think any less of them than I did last week, just because some teams just ended up jumping higher. Boston College also fell out, although they didn't really move much in my eyes. They're about the team I expected them to be, so they're right outside the top 25, even with that loss to Missouri. So, yeah, that's pretty much the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, like I said, please like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you guys have a great day or night whenever you're watching this. Yeah, see ya.